Hey folks, walk with me. Well, we're with the dog this morning, so we're already walking. um, William McKinley. So, I've heard rumors, though I didn't do any extensive searching on this, that Trump is a big fan of McKinley. And it makes a lot of sense if he is. Um, because William McKinley, if you don't know, he was president in the late 1800s into the turn of the century. And he was a big tariff guy, if you want, if you want to put it that way. But he had very protectionist ideologies and policies, something you might akin to America First, some 125 years ago or so. And he was very willing to and did put high tariffs on foreign countries. Now, let's sort of set a little context here. Um, the William McKinley presidency came on the backs of the Panic of 1893. The Panic of 1893 is not often talked about because everybody just talks about the Great Depression, but this saw a stock market crash of, I think, about 50%, unemployment as high as 20%. It saw hundreds of banks and railroads go out of business. Railroads were the growth stocks of the day, and it was at that time like the worst sort of crash and depression that was happening. And it's just in the 1800s they tended to call these things panics, um, and then the Great Depression eventually came along, um, and so on the backs of that, McKinley came into office. I think Grover Cleveland was his predecessor. And McKinley came in with very much this, I'm going to put America first, right? We're going to go into protectionism. I'm going to bring industry back. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to place high tariffs on foreign countries. And they ultimately ended up passing, I think it's called like the Dingley Act or something, so sort of goofy sounding like that. But this act provided 49% tariffs on, or as high as 49%, which at that time was just sort of like sky high. And there was a resurgence of American industry. Industry came back, the economy started to boom, and it did give the government at that time, which did not have a fixed federal income tax like we do now. It gave the government additional funds through these tariffs. Now, as the tariffs went on, while some of these great things were happening, there did show signs of cracks, such as reciprocal tariffs and the challenges that brought upon, especially like farmers and folks who made a strong portion of their living off of exporting their goods to foreign countries. And so, amidst the sort of growing pressures that the reciprocal tariffs were bringing, McKinley shifted from, tariff and let it ride to trade agreements. And he did use these tariffs as bargaining chips to get some, what were seen as sort of as favorable as possible trade agreements in place that could help sort of steady the economy, and it didn't sort of, help some industry and then leave some industry like agriculture very much struggling. And so abandoning the pure tariff for the trade agreement helped sort of smooth some of those things over. So, will Trump's tariffs prove to be successful? I don't know. Some things that strike me as being clear differences between what happened with McKinley and present day is, we're not coming out of a recession depression. We're coming out of a soft landing, and I think it was last year that we were, by economist standards, by mathematical standards, the envy of the world in terms of economy, right? I think that was the term that was used, and just had, it was broadly agreed upon to be the strongest economy in the world. Very different than coming through through the panic of 1893, and imposing tariffs then. Also, at that time, he placed these tariffs, and I don't know, maybe there was some sort of like back and forth, take it on, take it off. But Trump is shown to be, for the time being at least, like somewhat erratic with at least some of these tariffs, where it's unclear what it applies to, what it doesn't apply to. He can just sort of like very quickly put it on and just as quickly take it off, and he's oftentimes using them not to just bring back industry, though if that is a secondary effect or tertiary effect, he seems to be happy to tout that. But he's using it for things like curb immigration and we'll take your tariff off, or stop fentanyl at the border and we'll take your tariff off, and things like that. And so it's being used for other purposes, other than trying to like rebuild industry, reintegrate industry, and allow it to thrive without the pressures of, at that time, predominantly European competition. And so I don't know if it'll have the same effect or not. This honestly is not me like trying to skewer Trump and his tariffs and say that it's impossible and he's being really foolish and whatever. McKinley made it work, but these were incredibly different times. I mean, also the ability for countries to provide reciprocal tariffs. Everything was just a slower pace at that point. And so now, where there can just sort of be like the wave of a hand, and a new number is on the board, is a little bit more instantaneous than at that time, where news traveled by not airplane and certainly not by fiber optic cable or satellite. And so, the speed at which these things sort of hit was also just slower. But yeah, I mean, you can't take anything away from McKinley getting out of that. But even he, like I said, noticed that when there were fractures in this approach, and he adjusted accordingly, and ultimately did shift to trade agreements, knowing that there were some intrinsic issues with just leaving these tariffs in place. So, will Trump get there? I don't know. Is he just in, like, what's the point at which he goes, okay, if my tariffs worked? Is there an actual goal there, or is it mostly appearance-based stuff? That's often my worry with him, is that is he actually doing something because there is an end goal? Like, is there a marker somewhere on a sheet of paper or in his head that's like, I'm trying to get our GDP to this number, or I'm trying to get our trade deficit to this number? Or is it just a generalized, I want something that looks strong and powerful and like I'm a boss, and that I can say that I won at something, and the appearance of it is what's most important? Only he knows that. But I don't know. We'll see. But there's some clear differences. but to the extent to which it may bring back some important and powerful and high growth labor and industry, yeah, McKinley did it. It was a very different time, so we'll see how that goes this time. That seems for sure. We will see how it goes. All right, folks. Well, if you walked with me or watched along this far, I certainly appreciate it. And as always, I will see you in the next video.